Let's get a check now on markets, and this week's guest is Dr. Frayne Olson. He's with North Dakota State University Extension, serving as a crops economist and marketing specialist. And starting off, Frayne, what's going on with the wheat market? We've got fewer acres, there's a lot of production in other parts of the world. Is this causing it to be more difficult for producers when it comes time to making decisions on that crop?
Yeah, the wheat market has been kind of soft. I mean, we've had some really good, strong wheat production around the world. The winter wheat production here in the U.S. is also very strong. We had some quality issues start to appear in the spring wheat crop here in the northern plains. But again, when you look around the world, the largest wheat exporter right now is Russia. They had a very large crop last year. They're expected to produce and export a lot of their wheat. So we have some really stiff competition, especially for the winter wheat classes, because the Russian wheat tends to compare quality-wise very similar to our winter wheat country, like the Kansas, Nebraska region. France also had a very good crop this year. The French wheat, from a quality standpoint, is probably more similar to the soft red winter wheat that we grow into the Ohio River Valley area. And again, they had a larger than normal crop. They've been very, very competitive in the world market. And then we get into Canada. The Canadians, again, their total production is up a little bit from last year, but their exports are forecast to be lower because, again, they had some of the wet harvest and snow that we had up here in the northern plains. So they do have some quality issues. And again, it's not that all of the crop has been damaged, but they got a really wide quality profile.
And Frayne, also a big story, corn and soybeans and the extra moisture in this year's crop. And the money to get that dried isn't an expense that producers need. Are there any selling strategies for folks out there who may be dealing with that?
You know, to be really honest, from a marketing standpoint, there's limits. Because you're still going to have to get the grain dried regardless, whether you will pull it off in the field and dry it yourself, whether you haul it to town and let the elevator or commercial drying take care of it, or whether you even put it in a bin and try and keep the airflow to keep it in condition later on. At some point, you're going to have to take that moisture out to make it marketable. And so that cost is going to be one of those costs you're going to have to absorb. Now, one of the issues that farmers will be looking at, and I know because of the propane supplies right now are being very, very tight, there might be some shifts in, do I try and dry it myself and run it through my own drying system, or do I haul it to town and let the elevator dry it for me? And again, I think there's going to be a lot of individual localized situations. Farmers are going to try and have to do the math on which makes most sense for them on their individual farms.
All right, Frayne, we've got some rapid fire questions for you. I want to get some quick thoughts on big trade topics that we're continuing to follow. First off, USMCA, what's the holdup here?
Okay, so USMCA, it seems as though, so Congress has to pass that. That's one of the trade agreements that has to be authorized by Congress. There has been movement on that. Both the Republican and Democratic side have said they'd really like to try and get the USMCA onto the floor for a vote before the end of the year. And so it looks as though we're making some progress. Odds are very likely, very good that we'll have that authorized, hopefully by the end of the year.
Next up, the U.S.-Japan trade agreement. Not too many details been released here. Any updates?
The main thing is that we negotiated a reduction in the tariff rates. For your viewers, probably the two commodities that will have the most benefit will be beef as well as for wheat. Because of the TPP agreement that the U.S. backed away from, there were certain countries that allowed, that Japan was allowing lower tariff rates for. The U.S. now has been able to match those tariff rates, so we should see an increase or at least a rebound in the flow of both beef as well as wheat into the Japanese market, which would be very beneficial.
It sure would. And we also have the comprehensive economic and trade agreement between Canada and the EU. So what's this, and does it mean anything for U.S. farmers?
Yeah, CETA. So again, the Canadians have closer trade ties with Europe than the United States does, especially on agricultural products because of their history. This agreement kind of broadened that ability to be able to enter, for Canadian products to enter into the European market. Again, a couple of the large products that we're looking at is primarily in the wheat, also in some of the pulse crops, field peas and lentils. There's also some beef that flows from the Canadian market into the European market. So they're now at a slight advantage over the United States. The U.S. has just started a round of negotiations between the U.S. and the European Union. There's the current hang-up really is whether agricultural products will be included in those negotiations or not. The U.S. wants to include agriculture in negotiations, the Europeans do not.
And finally, the biggie is China. We still in wait-and-see mode here?
Yeah, we're still in wait-and-see mode. That's going to be a challenge for us. There was information this week that came out to say that, well, negotiations are probably going a little slower. There was a press release saying that the U.S. negotiators were hinting that we may not get an agreement with China before the end of the year. I think a lot of people were expecting that to happen. This is a day-to-day negotiations, and every day it seems like we're getting new information. So you're just going to have to try and stay current on what's happening.
Dr. Frayne Olson, we always love your insight, and thanks for being with us today.
All right, thanks a lot.